So Leslie Headland is back in a new interview to once again not take any accountability over the failure of the Acolyte and instead provide us with another round of "It wasn't me" acrobatics. And this time she is placing the blame on us Star Wars content creators. As if those of us on TikTok and YouTube can actually control whether or not a show is successful enough to get a second season. And understandably, those creators have responded in kind with a slew of reaction videos where they poke holes right through her claims like a lightsaber through wet cardboard. So it's been an interesting couple of weeks. And when this all blew up, I was just as appalled as all the other creators, and was going to make a reaction video of my own as well and share my thoughts and opinions. But I decided not to. And why did I pump the brakes on joining in with my Star Wars peers in the good fight? Especially since I myself made plenty of reaction videos about the show itself during its actual run. Well, because I decided to take a slightly different approach. You see, back when the series had just wrapped up and just before it was cancelled, I was so disgusted by the entire season of the show that I wrote a script listing down my biggest issues with it. However, due to personal reasons, I had to take a break from doing YouTube for a brief period, and once I was back at it, things had really died down. So the script never saw the light of day because I figured I'd missed the window for it to be relevant. But as it turns out, the Acolyte controversy just will not completely die because the makers just won't allow it. They're determined to point fingers everywhere. Fans, creators, the algorithm, the weather, until someone finally agrees with them. So since my dark side trait is being petty, I dug up my script, updated it, polished it, and now we're doing this. My list on my biggest issues that I have with the Acolyte ready to go. However, as you know, videos like this take a bit of time to put together, and even more time when you're a part-time YouTuber like myself, which is why you're seeing it now. But before we get into this, I feel I need to make a few things clear, to both the Acolyte and Leslie Headland, or I guess her wife?
I don't read anything. My wife just gives me the weather report.
That must be one cozy bubble she lives in. But here's the thing. In no way am I trying to tell you guys that you cannot enjoy the Acolyte. If you enjoyed it, that's okay. And if you're bummed that it got canceled, that's okay too. Art is subjective, and no one can tell you what you can or cannot like. No one is trying to change your mind. Rewatch the show as many times as you want. No one is going to slap the controller out of your hand. This video and the things that I'm about to list are meant to shine a light on why the majority of Star Wars fans do not like it. Because after more than a year of discourse on the subject, the polls have not changed. Yet despite that, I still run into Acolyte fans who want to blame other fans for its failure, and actually believe that we are hating just for the sake of hating because it's Disney, and that we don't have any real points to make. So for you, this is to give you a more detailed explanation so that you can hopefully have a better understanding of why we don't like it and why it failed overall. So here it is, my personal list on my issues with the Acolyte. Not all of my issues, because then this would be a 3-hour video, but my biggest issues, with each of these focusing on the lore, writing, pacing, and directing, because I have found issues with all of these things, and while this is my personal list, I have a very strong feeling that much of the fandom would agree with me on these takes. So let's get into it, and of course, like and sub for more Star Wars related content. First things first, we have to talk about the Indara situation. Because there are still people out there who don't understand why Indara dying to a second dagger is so bad. So let's really break this down. First off, I hope you noticed that I called it a second dagger and not a hidden dagger. Because just look at how she's standing. There is no way that anyone would look at someone standing like this and think, oh, she only has one dagger. She looks like a Spirit Halloween mannequin titled Suspicious Assassin No. 4, 2 daggers included. So for Indara to look so surprised like, oh no, a second dagger. I could have never predicted such treachery. The immersion cracked harder than Soul's lightsaber lens at the end of the season, because there is just no way that a seasoned Jedi Master should ever lose to a trick like this. Especially when the trickster in question is so weak by comparison. The message that their fight conveys is that May is nowhere near the level of Indara, so much so that sending her after Indara in this state is kind of a dumb thing for a Sith to do in the first place. So for this trick to work at the last moment is just way too forced. And while this moment is bad enough on its own, it's made even worse when you take the whole season into account. Because in the second flashback episode, we get a situation where Kelnaka, the Wookiee Jedi Master, gets mind-jacked by a sports team worth of witches and goes on a rampage that no one is able to stop until Indara shows up. She tackles the Wookiee, holds him down, enters his mind, and not only does she fight off the team of witches, she outright sends them to the cosmic force. Then on May's side, in the second episode, she fights Soul, who absolutely ragdolls her and uses not one, but 2 abilities on her simultaneously, levitating her while scanning her mind, a scan that just took a couple of seconds mind you. thus showing us that she lacks any strong resistances, and probably does not have much going on upstairs in the first place. And mind you, so was one of the two that got ragdolled by Kilnaka. So what the full season wants us to believe is that the girl who got ragdolled by the guy, who got ragdolled by the other guy, who got submitted by the other girl, who simultaneously fought off and killed a team of witches during that submission, is somehow able to kill that other girl with a second dagger. Are you starting to understand how bad this is for both Star Wars lore and just general storytelling? Because when you look at the sheer difference in power that's being displayed here, Indara could have snatched both daggers out of her hand and just arrested her right then and there. So the mere fact that she even allows the fight to drag on for as long as it does just makes no sense and ends up being immersion breaking, which stands as terrible writing. Period. The next big issue that I have is with the prison break scene. This is truly an example of bad directing, because this has got to be one of the sloppiest setups for a prison break that I have ever seen. How so, do you ask? Well, let's go over it. First of all, where are the Jedi? You know, the two Jedi who came to arrest Osha in the first place? They just removed them so that the prison break could happen, but didn't bother to give us a reason as to why. Even when Yord apologizes later for messing up, we are never told what he actually did other than leave Osha unattended. And what happened to his Padawan? What was her name anyway? Well, it doesn't matter because she is never seen again. Then there is the prison break itself. Let's just look at the setup. Osha is in a single cell with no shackles to keep her from using the Force. I mean, not like she can anyway for some unexplained reason. And she is in a room with other hardened criminals, along with one guard droid and two pilot droids, who proved to be absolutely useless. And remember, they gave this lax treatment to someone who is suspected of killing a Jedi Master. Like, how does any of this make sense? But they had to go and double down on the nonsense, because Osha is left with one escape pod after the other criminals escape, but there is one other person left. They tell us beforehand that he is a violent criminal who has to be kept subdued in a dreamlike state by this alien starfish parasite thing. But when Osha removes the starfish to save him, he immediately wakes up and sprints to the final escape pod like he's late for his shift at the cantina. So if this man was being sedated in a dream illusion by an alien starfish, then how did he even know he was on the ship in the first place, let alone know that the ship was going down, or where the final escape pod was located? This wasn't just sloppy, it was comically sloppy. It's like the writer said, okay, we need Osha stranded on a planet, what's the absolute dumbest way to achieve this? And someone else in the room said, say less. Next up are the Force Witches in the flashback episodes, a sloppy attempt at trying to introduce a new Force-based organization into Star Wars. And just how is it sloppy? Well, first of all, they are clearly a knockoff of the Dathomirian witches, just that their version has no sustenance. They call the Force the Thread, but then don't give a clear explanation as to why other than focusing on personal destiny, which kinda makes them more of a Sith knockoff than the Dathomirian knockoff. But their philosophy is never explained beyond that, and they claim to use the Force in unique ways that are different from the Jedi. But all we see is them doing Force pushes, mind tricks, and illusion spells. All things that Jedi and Sith have been capable of doing since forever. So how are they so different from everyone while at the same time copying everyone? The only thing that makes them different is the fact that they suck ass. Even the whole power of 1, 2, and many, which I will spare you the actual audio, is basically using the power of 3 quote from that one show Charmed while avoiding saying the number 3. And don't give me that you just don't like other Force groups outside the Jedi and Sith BS. Because I love the Dathomirians and their very rich lore. But I can hear some of you defenders saying, well, the Dathomirians have had more time to flesh out the lore. These witches were cut off after only 2 episodes. And I hear you. So let me give you another example from the book that I've been talking about a lot in my recent shorts, Mace Windu, The Glass Abyss, where Mace meets a Force group called the Sa'ad, who refer to the Force as the Web. I really like this group because they actually do what these witches don't, use the Force differently. You see, they call the Force the Web because they mean it in a very literal sense. They use webbing from spiderworms that they farm, along with music and rhythm in tandem with the Force, allowing them to do things like use vibrations to scout territory, send detailed messages back and forth, and even write books. And their fighting ability, Web Dance, allows them to read enemy movement through Force vibrations a split second faster than Jedi precognition. When Mace learns and combines this ability with his arsenal of Shatterpoint and Vapad, it opens his eyes to aspects of the Force that he had not experienced prior, So a unique Force group that is fully explained with examples and demonstrations, and it all happens in one book. And if this book were to be made into a show, it would actually be a bit shorter than the Acolyte, roughly 6 episodes at the most. So if this novel can create a new Force group, flesh out their lore, make them interesting and unique, and put their abilities on display in the scope of one standard Star Wars novel, then these witches have no excuse. Their concept is sloppy, thoughtless, lazy, and uninspired. Next up, I have to air out my issues with Soul, because I don't think I have ever seen a more inconsistent character in both personality and abilities. In one moment, he is acting like a good Jedi Master. The next, he is obsessing over a child. Now the first thing I normally hear when I bring this up is that he is masking his true self, which would make sense if not for a few things. Every time he is around Osha, he shows his obsession with her being his Padawan, so obsessed that he destroyed her people, and continues to be obsessed with her as an adult. But if he was that obsessed with her, then how is it no one else in the Order ever notices? You know, the Order of Jedi where anyone at any time can end up sensing the emotional shifts or instability? And if he is made to be so obsessed, then why is he okay with Osha flunking out and getting some normal job? Why is he out of contact with her until the plot starts pushing forward? And is so disconnected he cannot even tell the difference between Osha and May. When they switch places, he does not pick up on her mannerisms, or the differences in her Force signature despite May being trained in the dark side, or the fact that she has a tattoo on her forehead. Like he doesn't even know his own Padawan, the one he is supposed to be so dangerously obsessed with. Now do you get what I mean by inconsistent? And don't get me started on his powers. At one moment, he's an unstoppable badass. The next moment, he is absolutely useless. And this repeats through the entire show. He ragdolls May, then she blinds him and gets away. And somehow while blinded, he cannot tap into his Jedi senses. He hits Chimera with a powerful Force wave, the most advanced version of a Force push, but then he can't seem to muster up a simple Force pull when May goes for the escape pod. The same May he was flinging around with ease episodes earlier. And even in the flashback episodes, how was it he could not use the Force to save both twins? And for someone who is built up as a seasoned Jedi Master, he dies from a Force choke by Osha. And yes, we know he allowed her to do this, but if he is as powerful as what's displayed on screen, how is Osha, the person who was unable to do anything with the Force until this moment, able to break through his natural Force barrier with such ease? Normally when we see someone display powers like this, we would get some prior hints, right? But no. Instead of making her strong enough for this moment to make sense, they just magically make Soul weak enough to push the plot. So Soul is the most inconsistent character, and is the prime culprit for the constant immersion breaking. So, I will say it again. Terribly written. Period. Finally, my last issue, in this video, not my last issue with the Acolyte, is with Soul's lightsaber getting cracked and the crystal being bled. That's right, this lightsaber lore expert cannot and will not let this one go. This is just horrible in terms of lore and even common sense. First of all, the lens getting cracked was a terrible idea. Why is that? Because anyone who knows the lore of lightsabers would know that Osha turning the lightsaber on after that happens would cause the lightsaber to explode. The two most important internal parts of a lightsaber outside of the crystal are the focusing emitter and the lens. One is using the crystal to generate the energy of the blade, while the other is forming the blade structure. If either of these are damaged, then the result is the lightsaber blowing up. So why would they put this in if they were just going to ignore the results? As someone who has a whole mini-series about lightsaber lore, this moment really pissed me off. Then the bleeding of the crystal. Disney has already established the complicated bleeding process and how hard it is for even someone like Vader. Then there's Kylo Ren, who tried and failed to do it right, which resulted in his damaged crystal and unstable lightsaber blade. So if Disney went out of their way to establish this new lore, why is Osha not only doing this with ease, but she is not even focusing on the crystal? It just happens. And what's with the light changing scene? Did everyone in the creative process just forget how light works in general? Because how did this visual even make it past post-production in the first place? So now not only is the Acolyte ignoring original Star Wars lore, but they're even ignoring Disney lore. I guess Leslie really was out to make her own Star Wars universe that only exists in her little bubble. For someone who claims to be a longtime Star Wars fan, she really ignored everything that makes Star Wars good, or television in general for that matter. And so these are my examples as to why the Acolyte did so poorly and is hated by the overall community. And here's the thing, I have many more examples and gripes with this show. I am just stopping here for the sake of not making this video too long. But if any of you would like to see a part 2 to this, I will gladly put it together. But to my earlier point, this is not a list of why you should not watch The Acolyte. You can watch and enjoy whatever you want. You can go back and watch it right now. And in truth, we all have our trash shows that we like. I for one love the original Mario movie. However, I am not lost on the fact that it is a crappy movie and did not even consider any of the source material. And considering it came out after Super Mario World dropped, it had enough lore to flesh out a good movie. It just shows how sloppy things must have been behind the scenes. You don't even need to read John Leguizamo's book about the experience to figure that one out. So regardless of the fact that I personally enjoyed this movie, you will never see me defending it. You will never see me trying to compare it to the true Mario movie that is 100 times better, and you will never see me calling it anything other than enjoyable slop. And that's ultimately what The Acolyte is to you, enjoyable slop. And that's okay, we all have our guilty pleasures. But just because you enjoyed it personally does not mean it's actually better than what it is. It just happened to tickle your fancy, but not mine, and apparently not 80% of the fan base. So it bombed. So that's it for this one. Be sure to like, sub, and check out my other videos and shorts, and I will see you guys in the next video. So until then, may the Force be with you.